Hello everyone, welcome to Pikeville History Moments, where we talk about the history and heritage of Pikeville, Kentucky and the surrounding area. Today, we're talking about the 1918 flu pandemic and what it looked like in Pike County at the time. In the fall of 2020, we are in the midst of the novel coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic. It's become common to hear comparisons to the 1918 Influenza Pandemic, which was also known as the Spanish flu. We started wondering what the pandemic was like for the people who were living in our area at the time, and how did their experience compare with the situation we have today. The deadliest wave of the Spanish flu began in the fall of 1918. Estimates are that somewhere around 500 million people were infected and at least 50 million people died worldwide. In the United States, there were about 30 million people infected and 675,000 deaths, with more than 14,000 killed in Kentucky. A 2001 Appalachian News Express article by local historian Bruce Hopkins put the Pike County total at a minimum of 293 in 1918 alone. He notes that many other deaths were not recorded due to lost records and overwhelmed medical staff. Pike County saw only 6 flu deaths in the prior year. Most Kentucky deaths did not occur until early October. Death certificates were inconsistent. When the cause was listed at all, it might show influenza, pneumonia, or both. Pneumonia often resulted from the flu weakening its victim's immune system. We do know that a young boy named Estill Robinson died from the flu on Greasy Creek on September 9th. 35-year-old Mexico Chapman from Freeburn was the next to die of the flu on October 6th, and many more followed. It was 1 week later that we seen the first death certificate that specifically noted Spanish influenza. It was Rail Smith, a teenage boy from Canada. The 1918 flu differed from other strains in that it didn't just kill the very young or very old, but it also killed those between 20 and 40 years old at an even higher rate. Typical influenza outbreaks show a distribution of death rate by age that graphs to show a U shape. With the added middle-aged group, the Spanish flu's distribution forms a W shape instead. By late October, most of the state was improving, but it wasn't in mining counties. In Mr. Hopkins' article, he described how the family of Harmon Robinson of Greasy Creek buried 4 family members on a single day. Only the pallbearers were permitted to enter the cemetery. In Pikeville, there were 150 cases in the city less than 1 month after the first infection. Among the dead were Patsy White, the engine watchman in the rail yard, a judge named Robert Miller, and both Kate and Blake Stallard, the wife and son of a former county judge. The mother and son passed within hours of each other. Many cemeteries in Pike County were started during the 1918 flu pandemic. Among them is the Robinette Cemetery located near Stopover. John Wesley Robinette was the first to be buried there. Within 2 weeks, 4 more family members were laid to rest beside him. This pattern played out time and time again. Elkhorn Creek and nearby towns were hit especially hard. Hellier reported 12 deaths in a single week, and Jenkins in neighboring Letcher County had nearly 1,700 cases in early November. In Elkhorn City, the gravedigger reportedly moved into his tool shed at the cemetery. Teamus Bartley was living near Ash Camp at the time. In 1987, he was recorded describing how all the mines in the area had to shut down because of sickness and because the miners were busy digging graves. Listen to some of Mr. Bartley's description.
It's the saddest looking time then that ever you saw in your life. That epidemic broke out and people went to dying, and he was just 4 and 5 every night dying right there in the camps, every night. And I began going over there. My brother and all of his family took down with it. And every one of them was in the bed, and sometimes Dr. Preston would come while I was there. He's the doctor. And he said, I'm trying to save their lives, but I'm afraid I ain't going to. And they're so bad off. And nearly every porch that I'd look at would have a casket box sitting on it. And men are digging graves as hard as they could, and the mines had to shut down. There wasn't a miner running or a lump of coal running nowhere.
The measures taken to combat the 1918 flu pandemic may sound familiar. The phrase social distancing hadn't been invented, but those measures were adopted. Attendance at schools, churches, and other gatherings in the county were outlawed. As things improved, those restrictions were loosened. Then, in early 1919, County Judge E.E. Trivett and Dr. W.J. Walters reinstated them after 6 deaths on Marbone. Pikeville began trying to loosen restrictions again, but 3 infected teachers caused the city schools to remain closed. It has been reported elsewhere that some restrictions remained in place until 1920. Handshaking was strongly discouraged, while hand washing and keeping your hands away from your face was encouraged. Doctors didn't know much about the disease, but they knew it was likely passed through close contact and saliva. So, ordinances were passed and advisories were issued asking the public not to cough, sneeze, or spit in public. Recent studies claim that jurisdictions that implemented these measures saw 50% fewer deaths. Finally, mask wearing became widespread, and in some places it was required. Many photographs from the time show the public wearing masks. This includes nurses, police officers, and even pets. Masks were worn by Major League Baseball players and by the fans in the stands at various sporting events. Some people were against mandatory mask wearing as well. Initially, compliance was high, as so-called mask slackers were accused of endangering the war efforts of World War I. After the war, compliance dropped after patriotism was no longer a motivation, officials were caught in public without masks, and people tired of the inconvenience. There was even an anti-mask league formed in San Francisco. Self-isolation and quarantine were also required for some people. At times, the desire for a cure would grow into desperation, and various home remedies and snake oil-like tonics were taken. Ratliff's Drugstore, the first in the county, was located in Pikeville. It stayed open 24 hours a day, with Free Jack Ratliff and his son, Bob, taking shifts. Doctors from some towns rode out on horseback, while those who worked the coal camps went door to door to treat patients. Family and friends took care of each other by cooking meals, doing chores, or by trying to nurse the sick back to health. These small acts of heroism can serve as an example to us all. This has been the impact of the 1918 flu pandemic on Pike County. But there's more to this story. Watch for part 2 of this series in a few weeks, where we talk about the differences between those 2 pandemics in our area. Thank you for watching Pikeville History Moments. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe, or click on the link to our website at visitpikeville.com. We have included links to some of the referenced articles in the description below. Tune in for the next video in the series, and we hope you all stay healthy and safe.